The government passed its first tests on the crucial EU Withdrawal Bill tonight, but is facing a major revolt by Tory Remoas who are plotting with Labour to wreck the EU Withdrawal Bill. Ministers defeated a Labour bid to prevent Brexit happening before the end of any transitional deal, and saw off efforts to hand the Scottish, Welsh and Northern Irish devolved administrations a veto on any deal. Moves to repeal the legislation underpinning our EU membership on Brexit Day were also passed by a margin of 318 to 68. But hours of fiery debate laid bare the scale of the challenge the government has in store to steward it safely through Parliament. Former Ministers Dominic Grieve, Anna Soubrat, Nicky Morgan and Ken Clark are among up to 20 Tories who have signalled they are ready to vote against plans to put the date we leave the EU on the domestic statute books. Together with Labour, SNP and Lib Dem MPs they could inflict a mortal blow to the government's plans. As the rebel Tories were hit with an angry backlash for collaborating with the opposition, Brexit Minister Steve Baker warned that undermining the crucial legislation would leave the UK in a legal limbo, with potentially catastrophic consequences. Labour's Frank Field was embroiled in fiery clashes with Labour colleagues, and warned that the House of Lords would sound its own death knell if it tried to block the Brexit bill. Brexit Minister Steve Baker said undermining the crucial legislation would leave the UK in a legal limbo, with potentially catastrophic consequences. The Commons today kicked off the first of 8 marathon sittings which will see a coalition of Labour, the Lib Dems, the SNP and Tory Remainers try to water down the legislation. Former Attorney General Dominic Grieve accused Brexiteers of being delusional during the debate tonight. Tempers frayed tonight as the Commons kicked off the first of 8 marathon sittings which will see a cross-party coalition of Remainers try to water down the legislation. Labour veteran Frank Field was shouted down by colleagues as he said his party needed educating about Brexit and the public would never forgive politicians if they failed to implement the result of the referendum. At one point he jibbed about former Cabinet Minister Hilary Benn inheriting houses, but then apologised. Leading the committee-staged debate for the government, Mr Baker said it was an essential bill in the national interest which will ensure that whatever the outcome of the negotiations the statute book can continue function. The amendments would have the consequence of destroying this bill's capacity to function in the event a withdrawal agreement was not concluded, he said. And let me be clear, as a consequence of these amendments the bill's crucial provisions could not come into effect until a second act was passed. The consequence would be legal chaos in the event that the second act was not passed before the 29th of March, 2019. He said if the amendments were passed, Britain would still leave the EU on March the 29th, 2019, but our domestic law would be in an unfit state and we could have legal chaos. As a responsible government we must be ready to leave without a deal even though we expect to conclude a deep and special partnership, he added.